What's up everybody, Gen X Dividend Investor here. In this interesting and surprising video, I explain why I plan to take Social Security at 62 due to my dividends, even though most people should wait until 70. So if that sounds interesting to you, then please show your support by hitting that thumbs up button, subscribing if you haven't yet, and clicking that bell notification. Now I want to open this by clarifying that in my last video, I was just joking when I said that the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor. I was simply copying a bit from an awesome old school comedy called Animal House, which you gotta check out if you've never seen it. In the pinned comment and in the description of that video, I included a link to the clip where John Belushi's idiotic character with a 0.0 GPA delivers an epic speech to rally his fraternity brothers to fight against their foes, in which he said that classic Pearl Harbor line. But man, one commenter really freaked out at my joke. He said, "The Germans bombed Pearl Harbor? Dude, get your facts straight." But kind of a perfect display on public education, assuming you got that at all. Really enjoy your content usually, but that is just stupid. His comment reminds me of something I always tell my kids, which is that one of the most important things in life is to be kind to others, so if you're leaving a comment on social media, I encourage you to do so thoughtfully. Like maybe say thanks for the video, and oh, it actually was the Japanese that bombed Pearl Harbor, or something. Which reminds me of another comment I sometimes get, which is that people ask me about what I do for healthcare since I retired early, as they think that the only way they could retire early is if they had Medicare, which won't kick in until around age 65. They also ask me at what age I plan to take Social Security, which takes us to this video. The healthcare question is a great one, and the answer is that I buy my family's medical insurance on the health exchanges, and if they didn't exist, then I would probably still have a 9 to 5. I have a bunch of medical conditions, and before the health exchange existed, I tried to get health insurance when I was between jobs, but still on COBRA, and I found out that I could get insurance, but they wouldn't cover the parts of my body that had medical issues, which effectively makes them almost useless. But once the exchanges were put into law, along with the fact that they couldn't deny me for pre-existing conditions, then that means I could finally buy health insurance and not be required to have a job anymore. And the insurance I got was pretty much identical to what I had while I was working, so I appreciated that I could still go to the same doctors and hospitals and such. Another cool thing I learned was that the lower your income is, the more your medical insurance can be subsidized, to the point that if your income was low enough, then your insurance would be 100% free. So I buy my insurance on the healthcare exchanges for myself and my family, even with having medical conditions. Once I get to my 60s, then I'll look into Medicare and Social Security and such. And speaking of Social Security, why do I plan on taking Social Security at 62, even though most financial experts recommend you wait until 70, since you can get more income doing that? Well, to explain things a bit, the amount that a person gets from Social Security usually depends on his or her lifetime earnings. You generally need to work at least 10 years to qualify for Social Security retirement benefits, and the government uses your highest 35 years of earnings to figure out your payout, which means I'll have some $0 years in my chart. Now, various numbers and percentages change depending on when you're born and what year it is and such, but broadly speaking, if you were born in 1960 or later, then you get about 70% of your payout at age 62, around 100% at age 67, and like 124% at age 70. So let's say your normal payout would be $1,000 a month at age 67, then if you took it at 62 you'd get $700 a month, or $1,240 at age 70, which means waiting to take benefits at age 70 is like getting 76% higher payouts than if you took them at 62. And again, those numbers and percentages can vary by a variety of factors, so the best bet is to check the Social Security site for your specific info. Here's an example I found that illustrates things. This chart shows someone who would get max Social Security due to having enough wage earnings each year to qualify for the current highest payout. If they took Social Security early at age 62, they would get $2,572 a month in benefits, which is a lot more than the average monthly retirement benefit for all Social Security recipients today, which is $1,781 per month. If that person waited until age 65, they would get $3,279 a month in benefits, i.e. $707 more a month, which means $8,484 more dollars a year due to holding off on collecting benefits. If they waited until age 66, they could get $3,506 a month in benefits. And if they waited until age 67, they could get $3,808 a month in benefits, and finally if they waited until full retirement age of 70, then they would get the most at $4,555 a month in benefits, which is almost $2,000 more a month or almost $24,000 more a year than the people who took the benefit at the earliest at age 62. When I look at my personal Social Security statement online, and assuming I don't work anymore, which I don't plan to do, then my retirement benefit over a decade from now, if I took it at the earliest time, would be about $2,200 a month, not adjusted for 10 plus years of inflation. If I waited until the current max retirement age of 70, then my benefit would be around $3,800 a month. Also be aware that Social Security benefits are adjusted upwards for the effects of inflation, and they call it a cost of living adjustment, aka COLA. Okay, so what sounds better to you? Getting $2,200 a month at age 62 and for the rest of your life, albeit adjusted by inflation, or waiting until age 70 and getting $3,800 a month, also adjusted by inflation? Let me model what a portfolio could look like if we pretended that I started taking Social Security at 62 instead of waiting, using my portfolio growth simulator tool in my dividend spreadsheet product. I'll assume this new portfolio starts at 0, and let's say that I invest in stocks with an average weighted yield of 3.46%, which is what my portfolio is at today, with stocks that average a 7.35% dividend CAGR, again what my portfolio is at today, and I'll assume share prices go up 4% a year, since some people are predicting a slower stock growth decade coming up, and I'll assume I invest $1,540 into that dividend portfolio each month, which is $2,200 a month minus 30% for taxes, and let's see how it could grow after 8 years to take us from age 62 to 70. And note, some states don't tax Social Security. Anyways, under the aforementioned assumptions, we'd see that I have a portfolio worth $206,000, and it would be yielding about $9,150 a year in dividends. And I'm broadly just estimating things as taxes and brokerage types and etc. could all change the estimates. One nice aspect of taking Social Security early is that I'd have the financial flexibility to use the money rather than invest it if I wanted, amongst other trade-offs. Interestingly, if I'd waited until 70 for Social Security, then I'd be making $3,800 a month, which is $1,600 more a month than if I had taken it at 62, which equates to $19,200 more a year, which is about double what my investment would be making. But in addition to my new portfolio of dividends, I'd still be getting the $2,200 a month or whatever the after-tax amount would be, and my portfolio would be over $200,000 post-tax liquid at my disposal, and would be something my kids could inherit, as opposed to my Social Security payout, which generally isn't as compelling for survivor benefits, depending on a variety of factors. Plus, I'd rather get income from companies I own, rather than deal with a Social Security system that is going on shakier grounds. I mean, now it's estimated that if nothing changes by 2035, then Social Security will only be able to pay out about 75% of scheduled benefits. Or to say that differently, about when I'll be eligible to get any Social Security is when they're cutting the benefits by 25%. With that expected to happen, it makes me taking the money sooner even more compelling, and it's only possible to do in the first place because my dividends are already covering my needs. Now, one reason this 25% cut may happen is not because we're living longer, but instead because birth rates have dropped from an average of 3 children per woman down to 2, which means less people are driving payroll taxes into the program relative to the number of people taking out benefits. More into that in a moment, but my point in all that is that there are lots of things to think about regarding whether you should take your payout at 62 versus older. I plan to take my Social Security as soon as I can, and then I'll use that money to raise my standard of living, or invest it, or donate it, or whatever, but ultimately it'll be in my control sooner. And of course, one might argue to just put your after-tax Social Security money into an interest-bearing account that is at 5% now, but I'm guessing soon it will be back to lower percentages as interest rates seemingly keep falling. Thus, investing in dividend stocks will probably be the better long-term option. Another interesting analysis you could do would be to look at how long it would take you getting payments at the higher Social Security payout to break even relative to getting payments at the lower amount for a longer period of time. And you'd need to determine if you want to include an assumed 25% payout cut in 12 years or whatever. Now, a lot can change in over a decade, but one way we could avoid that 25% payout cut might be if we increase or eliminate the cap on earnings that are subject to Social Security payroll taxes. What happens is that the employer and employee both pay a tax up to a certain amount of income, and for 2023 that cap is about $160K a year. So if you made $1 million of income in 2023, you'd pay Social Security taxes on your first $160K of income, but not on the remaining $840K of your income. I'm not a tax person, so don't take anything I say as accurate, that's just my understanding. I also believe that means that Social Security payroll taxes are a regressive tax, since once you get over the cap you pay a smaller percentage of your income the more you make. That's why a potential fix to avoid the 25% cut would be to not end the tax at $160K, or maybe do a flat tax on all income, though any changes have pros and cons. Regardless, I like to focus on what I can control, rather than on what Congress might do, so I focus on my dividends and on my cash flow, and I see Social Security as gravy, even though it should be something I can count on. I mean, for most people, Social Security isn't a handout, it's something they've paid into for decades, thus they should get their payout at retirement age. For reference, Social Security is the largest program in the federal budget and makes up almost 1/4 of total federal spending. It provides benefits to nearly 9 out of 10 individuals over the age of 65, or 15% of the American population. And I read that without Social Security, 2/3 of the elderly in the US would be considered in poverty. And that is why for most people, waiting until 70 makes most sense if they can swing it, But unfortunately, most people don't have cash flow coming in from places other than Social Security in retirement, whereas people like us will also have dividends coming in, and potentially more, whether that's rental income or options income or side hustle income or whatever. Most people aren't great with budgeting their money or investing, so they become ultra reliant on Social Security, which also means that they're putting a lot of their future outside of their control down the road. And you never know what the future may bring. I had a job once where this older lady had this big LED clock that was counting down time until she could retire. Sadly, she died shortly after she retired due to an unforeseen medical issue. So while it might be more financially prudent to wait until 70, some people might still opt to take Social Security at 62 to get some benefit now rather than potentially more in the future. It's a lot of things you gotta consider carefully. There are no guarantees in life, so it really pays to invest intelligently while you still can to give yourself more options down the road. The best time to invest is when things are going smoothly, not try to scramble and invest when things are falling off the cart. Ideally, your Social Security is just a bonus on top of your other sources of retirement income. If that's the case, then the sooner you start collecting, the sooner you can start making the most of that extra money. Plus, I'm thinking it will just be a matter of time before the government pushes back the dates we can take Social Security and in turn reduce the benefits even more. I read about a third of people take Social Security as soon as they can at age 62. About 50% of people take it by age 64, and less than 10% of people wait until age 70 to take it. But statistically speaking, based on a study from United Income, most Americans haven't made a smart decision as to when to take Social Security. In 2019, they found that only about 6% of people who began taking Social Security at ages 62 or 63 made an optimal claiming choice. Instead, waiting would be smarter for the far majority of people. In fact, they found that 57% of seniors would have generated the maximum amount of lifetime income from Social Security if they had waited until age 70. But again, who knows what the future may bring. My recommendation to you is to simply spend some time as you get close to your retirement dates and research the pros and cons of taking the money early, using your own life situation and risk tolerances and needs and such. If you have poor health, or if your parents and or grandparents died young, then taking your benefits sooner might make more sense, so that you get some benefit before you go 6 feet under. Then again, age tech is getting a lot of investment, so maybe delaying until 70 will be your best financial bet. If you're married and or have kids, then you'll have other aspects to consider. Plus, it depends on if you're working into your older age, and if you'll have health insurance, and if you're eligible for benefits on someone else's plan, and if you'll have income to support yourself if you decide to delay taking your benefits, and blah blah blah. One thing I will tell you is that the older you get, the more important passive income becomes. Slowly as your energy fades, you'll appreciate money coming in from doing nothing. Which reminds me of another comment I recently got, which was from someone asking me what my thoughts were about YouTubers who post that dividends aren't a great form of passive income. My response is I don't know what motivated their thoughts, but I can share my experience, which is that dividends are literally the best form of passive income I've ever come across in my life. Now sure, I agree that some newer investors make the mistake of blindly chasing some dividend stocks without really understanding what they're doing, but you can find investors FOMOing into anything. The reality is that if you hold a basket of great dividend companies, maybe ones I'm long in like Apple and Microsoft and Procter & Gamble and Home Depot and Caterpillar and yada yada yada, and you buy when prices are cheap, I think you'll do quite well in the long run. Speaking of Caterpillar, I just posted this earnings update on X a few hours ago about how they beat estimates. Caterpillar is a great dividend stock that keeps driving forward. Like here's a 10-year total return chart of Caterpillar versus the SP 500 on Seeking Alpha, and we see that Caterpillar has returned 322% versus 229% for the SP 500. Lots of great dividend stocks have outperformed the market over various periods of time, and lots of dividend stocks have underperformed the market. Nothing is guaranteed, and most things will have their setbacks, but if you invest in great companies over the long run, then I think you'll be hard not to do well. I'm personally 2 months away from hitting the 3-year mark of being retired due to dividends paying my bills, and I absolutely love the fact that I can do whatever I want day in and day out, and I get a lot of joy from seeing month-over-month dividend hikes coming in. I mean, I could be backpacking in some remote place in the world that doesn't even get cell phone signals, and yet I'll still have cash flowing directly into my bank accounts. It's very cool to own great companies that pay you a share of their profits, freeing your time up to do whatever you want. One of my favorite things to do is travel with my family, and even though I preach living frugally, I like to spend my money on experiences instead of things. I've now been to 61 countries around the world, and I hope to travel to over 100 of the 195 out there before I kick the bucket. If you're young, I encourage you to work hard so that when you're older you don't have to. And don't just invest intelligently, but also invest in your health, because that will pay dividends down the road as well. But back to money dividends, I appreciate that they can provide income for my family even if I'm not here, something that normal stocks can't easily do. That doesn't mean you should ignore great companies like Google and Amazon. I'm just saying dividends from solid companies are the best form of passive income out there. Now, it took decades of investing to grow my assets large enough to be able to enjoy them like this, so it's not a get-rich-quick thing. But if you invest in decent stuff for a long time, then I think you'll be surprised where you end up down the road. Running a social media platform based on dividends has introduced me to a bunch of people who are retired on dividends, and I've yet to meet one who wasn't ecstatic in the approach. So to those who poo-poo dividends, well, maybe they've had a bad experience, or maybe they're newer to investing and haven't figured out how to make a solid dividend portfolio work for them, or God knows what. I've created a bunch of videos on the pros and cons and risks of dividend investing in hopes of sharing a balanced perspective on things, and I've not regretted retiring early on dividends for a second, though I have read about some people that regret retiring it at all, primarily due to financial reasons and not to do with dividends. So my advice to whoever is watching right now is to be intelligent, don't take anything that anyone says as gospel, keep learning more, and go on whatever investing path makes sense to you. And with that, I'd normally do a shout out to my newest Patreon aristocrats and kings, but I'm still all sold out. So instead I'll recognize my all-star Patreons, i.e. those supporters that have signed up to my Patreon for over a year and continue to stay on board. Also, I'd like to recommend that you consider using my Seeking Alpha affiliate link, which I'll include in the description of this video. I really value how their premium membership lets you read all the articles, which I feel is worth the price of admission, even though I don't agree with everything that is written. I personally paid for Seeking Alpha Premium for multiple years, and now I'm grateful that they've agreed to sponsor me when I talk about them. Whatever you do, please hit that thumbs up button, subscribe if you haven't yet, and click that bell notification. And I highly recommend that you join my free Dividend Discord chat server, which has over 10,000 dividend investors on it from 76 countries around the world. Thanks for watching, stay positive, and I'll talk to you again real soon. I am not a financial advisor, and these videos are for entertainment, inspiration, and educational purposes only. Investing of any kind involves risk. I am only sharing my opinion with no guarantee of gains or losses on investments.